checkboxes.com. Thanks for watching session 3 of Online Registration 101. In this session, I'm going to show you how to set up custom questions in your registration programs. So we saw in session 2 that we were able to set up a successful registration program and launch it. However, we skipped over those custom question options, so we'll be doing that today. So the first thing we want to do is log in to the website in the top right corner by clicking on the Login tab and then entering your username and your master or administrative password. And once we get logged in here, we can go up to the Admin tab in the top right corner and we can navigate to Members and then Registration System, which would be the shortcut, or we can just click on that Administer tab and that'll take us to the administrative homepage. And I'm just going to take the long route. So on the Administrative Features page, I can then navigate to that Members box once again in the top right here and click on Registration System. Okay, so once we get to the registration system page, you're going to be familiar with this. You're going to see your registration programs that you've successfully set up and launched in the top section of the page here. And you can see that I have this 6th grade boys registration that I was working on. And we skipped over this button originally, the form button, where we would add custom questions. Now, as explained in the first couple of sessions, we automatically capture some information for you. So questions that you won't have to set up will be things like name, address, phone number, email, date of birth, grade, gender. All of that information is captured for you automatically on those participant information screens and the parent information screens. Now, you're going to want to add custom questions, things like what's your jersey size, or who do you want to carpool with, or what's your emergency contact information, or even a waiver or agreement that somebody needs to accept. And we can do those things in the form. So we'll highlight our registration program that we successfully created, and we'll click the Form button. And this will bring us to a page where essentially it's blank. We haven't added any questions yet. To do that, we'll obviously click the Add button down here in the bottom left corner. And when we do that, it's going to bring us to a page that has all of the different question types that will be available to you. And you can add any number of these question types to your registration form. And we can go through these one by one. But I'm going to go through them very quickly here so you understand what they are. The label option is simply text on a page. You would select this option, click Continue at the bottom, and you could type or insert an image onto the page. There's no user input that's needed for a label type question. You would just be displaying something to the end user. A text type question is what you're all familiar with when you're filling out forms online. This would simply be a prompt that you would ask somebody, please enter a phone number here, and they would type their answer into a text box. And you can change the size of those text boxes as well. The agreement text option allows you to paste in information such as a waiver or code of conduct that somebody would need to agree to in order to continue on with your registration program. The next option is a checkbox. So this would allow you to group a number of items and allow people to select multiple items from that group of options. Or you could have one option, perhaps a question like, would you like to volunteer? And if they selected that, that would obviously mean yes, and they could leave that deselected and meaning no. The radio button is essentially what we're using here in this form. You can only select one option out of a group of items. And the drop-down list is then similar to a radio button, which I'm sure you're familiar with. You can click on the arrow pointing down, it'll show you a drop-down list, and you can select one of those options. You also have the option to upload a picture image for an individual user, so when they're registering they can upload an image to their profile. You can also have them upload a birth certificate, so a scanned copy of their birth certificate. And then you also have the option to allow them to choose a team. So in this option, it would be a drop-down of all of the teams that you have created for the season, and they can then select a team. And this perhaps could be a team they'd like to be rostered to, or a team that they're actually rostering themselves to. And you have those options to either roster them manually yourself, or have them automatically rostered when they make this selection. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a question here of the label type. So I'll click on that radio button next to it, and I'll click the Continue button down below. And now this will bring us over to the question definition page. So this is where we can set up our question. So every question that you add is going to have a name, and we need to name this something appropriate. So for labels, you really don't have to worry about giving it a really great name, just because it's not collecting any data. However, when you start to collect data through drop-downs and checkboxes and things of that nature, you're going to want to give it an appropriate name so that when you go do reporting, you can download the information, and the information that's captured for that question, you'll be able to determine what that information was collected for. So for example, if you were using a drop-down and you wanted to find what their jersey size was, you would probably want to use a name such as jersey size. But for a label, we can just simply enter perhaps text here. Then down below in this area, we can pretty much put anything you'd like here. You can put text, pictures, heck, you could even embed a video if you'd like to. But for now, I'm just going to put some simple text here. And then down below, we're going to choose that this is always going to be displayed to the end user, and click Continue. Okay, so that's the first question we've added, or the first piece of information we've added to our registration form. And we can go ahead and preview this if we'd like by clicking the Preview button at the bottom. And if somebody were to come through the registration process after they enter their basic information, this is the next page that they would see. And of course, you'd have a Submit button at the bottom here that would allow them to continue on to the next page to go ahead and pay. But for now, this is just a preview, so this is what it would look like to them. But we need to get back and add some more questions, so we'll just click this button down below here to return to the question list. Okay, and then we'll just move along adding some additional questions down here in the bottom left by clicking Add. And this time I'm going to select a text type question and click Continue. And so for a text type question, we're going to collect data from people. So we want to have an appropriate name here. In my examples, I usually use emergency contact as an example. So I'm just going to do emergency number. And my prompt is going to be what I'm going to ask the end user. So please enter an emergency contact number. And maybe I'll put a colon there. And that'll prompt them to enter some information. And then we have additional options down below. So this is going to affect the appearance of the text box. How wide do we want it to be? How many rows tall do we want it to be? We can also make this a required question that they have to complete. We can lock this option after they've entered and submitted their information. They wouldn't be able to go back and change this answer. We want to make it visible so they can complete this. You'll find that as you start doing more and more registrations, you may need to make administrative-only fields. Perhaps there are some requirements that you need to check off on an individual's registration program, or some notes you need to make about their registration. And you would be able to include a text box and uncheck this option, and then when you logged in as the administrator, you would be the only one able to edit that question and the only one able to see that question. If you're storing sensitive data, you can choose to make that encrypted. We want to make this always displayed to the end user. And then we can choose where we want to get the default value from. So we could have this field automatically populated when they got here based on maybe a previous registration that they've completed or another family member's answers. So if there's multiple family members, if they had the same question in their registration program, then it would automatically populate. Or we could alternatively put a default value here. Probably not going to use that for an emergency contact number, but you could have it for something else. Then down below we can choose what type of response this is going to be. So right now we have it set to free-form text, which means they can enter anything they'd want in there. We can optionally have them enter a date, a number, a cost item to be added to the form total, which might be nice if you're asking people for donations. So you could essentially add a text type question, ask them how much would you like to donate, and then the amount that they entered would be a number, and that number would be added to the total cost of their registration. You could also do a discount or coupon code here by entering the coupon. And then the discount amount. And if you had this text box, somebody could enter $10 off if you provided them the coupon code, and they would get $10 off of their registration. You can also do a quantity multiplied by a unit price. So if we had $30 here and we were asking how many tickets would you like, and they entered 3, then they would pay $90, or $90 would be added to the cost of their registration. But for now, we're going to leave it as free-form text, and we'll go ahead and click Continue. Okay, so we've got 2 questions added, and let's go ahead and add one more here just for demonstration's sake. And the agreement box is going to be one that's used widely. So we'll select that option, and we'll go down to the bottom and click Continue. Okay, so we want to name this something appropriate. We can do waiver. And then if we had text from somewhere else, like a Word document or another website, we could copy that and paste it in here. Or you could just type your agreement text however you'd like to. And this is the prompt that'll be shown to them, so they'll have to check the box that says, yes, I accept the above, and then we'll click Continue to save that. And I'll show you what this looks like by previewing the form. So currently this is how our form would look to the end user. Here's that label question I added. Here's my emergency contact number that I'd need to enter. And then here's my waiver. So they'll need to accept this in order to continue. And you can see that these things are required because they have a red asterisk next to their name. So going back to the registration questions, we'll click Add to add another. And we'll move on to the checkbox option. So checkboxes are nice because you can allow people to select multiple options from a group. So here on the checkbox definition page, we're defining text for one single checkbox. And if we want to add multiple checkboxes, we'll need to do this over and over. So we may call this, let's think of a good one here. Okay, so I'll do checkboxes for volunteer positions. So I may call this I'll call it vol position coach. The option text is going to be what's next to the checkbox. So I'll say coach, or I would like to be a coach. The option value, this is what's going to be shown to you when you download this report. So we may want to make it something more appropriate, like coach. We don't necessarily want to make this checkbox required unless you're asking them to agree to something, because if it's required, then they have to check it in order to continue. Checkboxes should usually be set up that you can check something or deselect it if you change your mind and don't want to do that. We'll make it visible, so this is not an admin-only field. And we'll have it always displayed. And then here's a cool little feature. If you had, let's say you had 5 volunteer positions and you only needed 2 people per position, you could put in here that number 2 and select the hide option. And that means after 2 people had selected this option, it could automatically be hidden from that list. So you don't have 20 people signing up for the snack duty and 2 people signing up to be the opening day coordinator. So that would force people into choosing an option that was available. But for now, I'll go ahead and leave that blank here. Again, we can get our default value from a previous registration, somebody else that maybe has registered, or we can choose that this option would be selected by default. Additionally, we can add costs to this. So maybe there is a cost if they selected, let's say, a different option that maybe jersey size perhaps, or items that they needed for their equipment kit, shorts, jersey, socks. If they selected one or many of those, we could add costs based on their selections. So if this was a jersey, we could say, okay, $10 would be added if they selected that option. So I'll click continue, and I need to add another checkbox because we just don't want to have that one volunteer coach position. So I'll add another one really quickly, checkbox, and I'll go to the bottom and click continue. And we'll do a different name here. This is going to be vol position, and this could be snack. Okay, and I could say I would like to coordinate snacks. I'll maybe change my option value to snack. I'll leave it not required, always displayed, and I don't want to get default values from anywhere, and no cost associated with it, and we'll click continue. Okay, so we've got a couple in there, and we can preview that very quickly. Okay, and you can see our checkboxes, so they could select one, none, or both. Now, it's kind of confusing here because we don't have anything to prompt them other than the checkbox here. So we may want to add a label just above these options asking somebody what they'd want to volunteer for. So we can do that pretty simply. If we don't want to use this text up here, we'll just highlight it and we'll move it down, and then perhaps we will edit this. And now the text, we can change it to and I'm going to add just some formatting here. I'm going to put this down another line, and I'm going to add a horizontal line just to give us a little break there. And I'll click continue. And we'll preview that. And this should give us a form with a little break in there. Okay, so we've got my contact, I've got my agreement or waiver. I put a line break in there, or a horizontal rule in there, and just to break it up a little bit. And then I added some text, and then I have some checkboxes. So you can see how you can start building a form here. So the radios and the drop-down, they're similar to the checkbox. When you add them, you're going to need to add multiple items for the radio button. The drop-down list, you'll only need to add one of those, but you can list all of the options that somebody has to choose from in that box. Moving on to the picture and the birth certificate, there's nothing that you'll really need to do with those differently. You can see that we can go ahead and add this, and there's already standard text that's populated. You'll just need to give it a name and optionally make it required. And when somebody were to come to your registration and go through this process, they'd be able to upload a picture in this area. So we can demo that right now. I'll call it photo, and I will make it required. And I'll click continue. And if we take a look at that, we'll see that we now have an option to go ahead and browse for a photo on our computer that we would upload to our member record. And like I said, once you set up all of your questions, you can certainly move them around later just by highlighting them and using the move up and down buttons. And once you have all of your questions in place, just simply click the Done button, and that will save all of your options. Okay, so once we have our registration program set up with our custom questions, let's go ahead and run through the registration program so we can see how that would appear to the end user. So I'll go to my home page and I'll look for my Register Online button. That'll populate. And then we'll find that registration program that we just created. And I'm going to go through the 6th grade boys registration and click Begin Registration. And then continue on the next page. And this will bring me to the sign-in screen. And again, if you don't know your password or you don't have a password, you can simply enter your email address and the system will automatically send it to you. Okay, so once I get logged into my family account here, I can find a member that would be eligible and click register next to their name. And this will take me into the participant information screen, and I can just verify that all of their information is correct, and then scroll down to the bottom here and click submit to continue. And this moves me on to that supplemental question that we just created. So this is where you can collect that custom data. So we can enter an emergency contact number, and we can agree to the waiver, and then we can select if we'd like to be a volunteer. And perhaps we can upload an image just by clicking browse. It should open a dialog for you, and then we can select an image from the computer here. And then once we've got that inserted there, we'll click submit to save this. And this will take us over to the registration review page. So now you're collecting registrations with all of that custom data that you've set up. A member could now go ahead and click pay now to pay by credit card, go back and register another individual, or go ahead and make payment by check or cash. I'm Mark at League Athletics. Thanks for watching session 3.